So in the next couple of podcasts, we're going to look at some questions. I'm going to share with you some of the questions that I asked myself regarding Kingdom Death Monster tactics on the tabletop, developing out your settlement, deciding what direction to go. And I say questions because sometimes there are multiple answers on that path. Sometimes it's how you want to play, where you want to play, and certain conditions where you want to take the game. But I have to say, first out, Kingdom Death Monster, an amazing game, but it's about discovery. It's about the unknown. And there is so much to navigate in the unknown and so many stories within a story. In these podcasts, I'm not going to give away any spoilers. I'm not going to give away any of the major decisions that you might need to make. And the perspective of bringing that to my channel, there's a big difference between playing Kingdom Death solo by yourself, because you get to make all the decisions. You get to experience the game through your own filter, whether you've just jumped into this world or you played through a couple of settlements, versus playing with a group. Because even if you've brought yourself through a settlement solo and you played a couple of times, the perspective of the other players, the view that they have on there, and certainly not to spoil anything from that perspective. So I'm primarily looking right now from a solo board gamer going in, playing KDM. These tactics I would never bring up or discuss, these questions I would never bring up and discuss, and I don't when we play with other players. It's literally like I've got my survivor, and that's who I'm going to control, and we're going to debate because we're in this settlement. We're going to see what we can do, but the consensus is out there. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? So the first thing, this is kind of like ground zero, or I should say Lantern Year 1, the very first encounter. Now, if you've played through a few times, you know what to expect. There's no spoiler there. You're fighting a level 0 lion on there, and I know many players want to kind of just skip past that, or I should say it's tempting to skip past that because it serves as a great introduction into the game on there. It's kind of like a tutorial on there. But I never skip it for two reasons. Things can always go catastrophic, and that puts a lot more pressure on the settlement before things are even established. You know, if you're down on survivors and you get really messed up on there, that makes things much harder. Although I would say the counter to that would be, if you played through a few times, you kind of know how to navigate that initial level 0 lion on there. So from that perspective, you shouldn't get mauled, although Kingdom Death Monster, dice games, crazy things happen. But I don't skip it for two reasons. One, there's the chance for some interesting stuff to happen along the way, developments with my heroes. But the big thing, the core tactic, the founding stones. How do you utilize those? And it's for a long time, the way I played, and again, absolutely no spoilers here. This is just my perspective on it. Initially, the way I played it, when I didn't quite understand the tactics, when I didn't quite understand how lethal the lion could be, and when we were playing as a group, you do become attached to your survivor on there. Even at the beginning of the game, before you realize that just you die and all crazy things happen in KDM, you become attached from it because it's almost like a creation as a role-playing game, and you give your character a name on there, your survivor a name. So what I found initially is we were just trying to get through the encounter, even if we played it a few times, by throwing the founding stones, because it's going to generate auto hits. It's going to generate possibility for a lot of damage. In doing that, it's going to give you potentially a lot of resources up front, in addition to what you walk away from the hunt based on the wound cards. It's not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee in Kingdom Death Monster, but there's a chance part of that line will get cut off or you'll obtain it. And that's a nice little boost before you even get into the first Lantern Year and the first real official hunt. It's nice to have that little cushion of potential items and potential gear after you complete the first hunt to really give you a tremendous advantage early on in the Lantern Year. So I'm throwing the stones. We're trying to stay as far away. we're doing what we can on there. We get into position before, if we're talking tactically, before we throw them. So this way, when we start punching things, at least we're punching from behind and working on all that. And that gives you an advantage in the beginning, or the biggest chance. But I would ask this question, and again, no spoilers, things get crazy. Things get nuts with the later hunts. And that's just in the core alone. The core box, in terms of the story arc and the things you're going to fight, it's easily the hardest game that I've ever played. It's up there for a reference without any spoilers. I feel like when I play Kingdom Death Monster, in the beginning, even now playing a lot of the settlements and working my way through there, I feel like I'm back in the 80s playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons at a very, very high level, where D&D right now, and if you've been following my channel, you know I love D&D. I love playing D&D. It's like in my DNA on there. But D&D 5.0 is baby cakes. It's very hard to die. If you die, you get resurrected. And there's this whole challenge rating thing where for the most part, yeah, the DM can make it harder or easier, but there's this idea built into the DNA of D&D right now. You're never really going to fight anything that you can't beat. You're never really going to fight anything that's going to totally destroy you on there. I mean, unless you make some really bad tactics and have some really horrible dice rolls, you can't control the dice on there. But you're heroic. You're not an adventurer in D&D right now. You're like on the way to becoming an immortal god from that perspective. You go back to AD&D, and even at the higher character levels, I remember playing a magic user, higher levels, level 17, 18, 19, up there. There's just certain things in the monster manual. They give you the stats. They give you the stuff. They tell you what it does. But you're never going to beat it, or it's going to be impossible. There's just certain things mortals are not meant to face. In AD&D, you're truly an adventurer. You're truly like, a warrior on there, just out to make some money or some coin or some fame. That's not to say you don't grow to be powerful, but there are much more powerful things in the multiverse there. That's Kingdom Death Monster. So later on, as the Lantern years progress, you're going to encounter some pretty crazy stuff. And there have been times where I'm like, now would have been a really good time to be throwing that stone and just shaving down some of the life, some of the health, cutting down on that AI deck of cards just a little bit. Even if I don't know what it does, I don't want going into that battle with that full deck on there. And that's before we get into any of the expansions. Kingdom Death Monster, absolute amazing value in the core on there. If I was going to go play a game for years and years and years, well, I got to take two. I'm taking Gloomhaven and I'm taking Kingdom Death Monster. And both of those, fantastic. As you start to add on the expansions and more monsters to hunt, if you're going in that direction or if you're intending to go to that direction, things get even more space madness. Things get even crazier with the AI and the abilities. And I'm not going to give that away, but you might wish that you had that stone. So what I found later on, as we played, I kind of wish I held on to that founding stone. We're moving into the double-digit Lantern years. We're moving on, and we're pretty powerful outright in the settlements. But it's that auto that was so important with that on there. So that would be the first consideration that I would ask. Myself, those first couple of times as you play through, it might be nice to potentially have the chance to boost your resources by cutting off some sort of body part or getting that, on a crit hit, you get some more resources. But long term, is that viable? So that's my first question of the podcast, and that's the first place that I ask myself solo when I move into Kingdom Death Monster. Again, and as a group, we kind of leave it where it is.